out of left field, but there's a great documentary I watched, and this is something that it's won awards, so it seems like a lot of people already know about this. I don't think I'm
You
bringing
know
it.
it's good if it's won an award.
I don't think I'm bringing this to like a whole lot of people that might not already know about it. But it's called The Act of Killing.
I
Um,
think I've heard of that.
yeah, it's from I think 2012, and it's phenomenal. So what this is the backstory is that it's essentially there's a documentarian, Joshua Oppenheimer, is it's the act of killing. He is doing a story about the Indonesian genocide, right? So this was something that took place, yeah, like back in the 70s, and essentially, the short version of this is that um, there was a communist plot to take over the country. There was a coup d'état, and it failed.
Mm-hmm.
And then after it failed, um, the retaliation was so extreme that it led to what they estimate to be about 1 million people were just culled, right?
Cool.
Super duper dark and like just insanely heavy stuff. So this is a story though where the main thing that makes this like tragedy really different from a lot of others throughout history is that
Hmm.
the people who won that went on to continue like ruling the country and leading, and there
Right.
was no moment of like addressing what happened. There was no
It was just
talking.
like, ah, well, we're done with that.
Yeah, right. And
Moving on.
so moving on, and then it fast forwarded to modern day where like they're just like the whole culture just it seems at least according to what was presented here just kind of like accepted that this was a thing that happened and the good guys did a whole lot of murder and we
Hmm.
just accept that and that's it, right? We don't talk, we don't really think too hard about it, but it's a thing. And so the documentarian went to go talk to the survivors and he wanted to tell their stories about what happened. The government stepped in and said, "Stop doing this. You can't film this." Right? Um,
Hmm.
and
Which is
basically,
which is what a documentarian loves to
hmm
hear.
hmm
Oh, I'm. Tell me the list of people I'm definitely not supposed to talk to. I'm gonna
right.
make sure to not talk to those people, and this is their addresses, so I make sure not to go there
Yeah.
and not ask them about what.
So
Got it.
so it's even more fascinating because, like partway through, recording and talking to these people and getting their stories about, just what happened and like the it was the victims were far from just communists. Like there was a point where it was just if you were ethnically Chinese, if you were even remotely just affiliated, if you were someone that if they just kind of looked at you the wrong way, you could be carted off to be interrogated and just like offed completely, like culled, livestock level killing. And so they said, yeah, stop filming this. You can't do this. And they're like, okay. Then one of the survivors was basically talking to them, and they're like, look, if you can't get the story from us, then go to the perpetrators and ask them about it. Go to the people who did the genocide and
Hmm.
see what they have to say, right? If you can tell this story, please do, because like it doesn't seem like it's going to happen from here. So the filmmaker then went to meet with officials and people in town and like war heroes and the celebrated.
I'm gonna use the big old air quotes on the war heroes.
Of course, that's yeah. This is all within that context, exactly, right? Um, and right away when he asked about what happened, not only were they like oh yeah, I totally killed like 50 people up here, we took them up here, they were like you want to go on a tour, I'll show you where I did it. And they were boasting about where they killed people and how, and like literally the nitty gritty details of like, oh, you want to wear these kind of pants when you're doing it, and there's too much blood, so we had to get the wires out, and like going into proud, boastful open discussion about all the horror of what happened. No ounce of anything, right? Negative to it. And basically, the dude realized that, like, yeah, the because the culture kind of moved forward and just accepted what happened, or quote unquote accepted what happened, and the people in power get to dictate
Mm-hmm.
that. There's no reckoning, so there's no discussion, so everything just kind of, there's no reason to be ashamed of these acts, right?
Yeah, we
So
did it.
yeah, and that's the perception, right? So it's this whole crazy thing where they're like super open about it, and like they're like, yeah, let's go hang out. I'll tell you all everything you need to know, and like he realizes at a point that like a lot of them too were like, these are people that are like, they're paramilitaries that like came from like being like street thugs and gangsters and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and there's a whole just like brute force criminal organization that more or less is now in charge, right? And
You mean the government?
yes, exactly, exactly, that's literally it. And so what happens is he's like, they are, and these people are all, they're all super into Hollywood, they're into old films, they like they have like deep roots with that stuff, so they're obsessed with like the storytelling aspects of all the crimes they did. And like the documentarian goes, guys, you know, if you want to tell me what happened and what you did, we can literally just recreate that however you want. We'll create the story. You can write whatever script. You can show me what you did. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, yeah, well, let's make a movie about the crimes we did. And then it just fucking goes from there. It's insane. It's so insane. And you're just watching people that are involved in this casually being like, yeah, let's get the film crew up, let's make the set, here's the screaming mother and her baby, and this is what I did. Like, just there's a disconnection, and it's some of the most fascinating fucking like human storytelling. I can't believe I missed out on when this first came out, because it like, there's one person in particular that they follow, that was like you know, the leader of an execution squad, and like his life, and he's like an old man, he's got a family, he's decorated, he's, you know, a big shot. And like the story follows him because he has a couple of moments of just like, yeah, I, you know, I did what we did, I still have these horrible nightmares, but you know, anyway, you know. And like, and there's these little things where like this person seems to have something a little bit closer to the surface in terms of like an idea, like a possibility of like feeling for what you did, some kind of empathy, some kind of something. And so they just follow them along the process, and it's a documentary, so like, you know, there's no, I don't think there's any, it's not about spoilers here, but like there's a point they get to in like recreating all these things where like you watch him kind of confront some shit that he just never had to, and like it
Oh,
comes.
where he's going like, so I put them in there, and yeah, they were crying, and at some point in the realization, they realize, oh, maybe this was actually a fucked up thing to do.
So it's a very slow process throughout the movie, but I'll literally tell you exactly what it is. Is in the beginning they go up to a rooftop and they show you how they garroted people because it was a cleaner way to kill, and there was not and there was too much blood in any other way, and they show you that. And then like later on, when he's watching himself and watching what they filmed and having a bunch of these moments, and like at some point, like there's people that are involved with the production that are there that like were like, yeah, I was part of this too, had to go kill my
Mm-hmm.
stepdad, he was Chinese, so I just did it, but you know, anyway. And like this crazy level of like stuff that they're confronting. And like there's a point where he goes back to the same place and is telling them about the crimes, but this time like almost like with the Jinx, like his body just starts to gurgle and like vomit, and like he's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's coming up, you know. And you get to,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so, and it's like just the weight of
The
all of
buried
that.
evil.
the buried
is
evil
is physically expelling
physically
itself.
comes out, and it's unbelievable, unbelievable. It's called The Act of Killing. It's on YouTube. It's a 2.5 hour long, I think, documentary.
That's a long genocide documentary.
There's a lot to talk about and a lot of people to follow because this is a thing that never was addressed. And this movie
Well,
was
I've literally never heard of it until you just
yeah,
mentioned it.
and it like, you know, and it's like that's the and I mean they killed that many people over the course of about 2 years. So you're talking about like multiple a day, you know. It's just, yeah, following that type of shit is it's like unlike anything I've ever seen, you know.
You know,
And
I as you described this, obviously, this feels bad, man.
yeah,
Though there is a silver lining that I was able to find in my own head as we discuss this,
yeah,
which is this, like, the idea that like humans are, you know, awful or fundamentally good or fundamentally bad, etc. Like that argument. It's like, well, progress has definitely been made because our personal and most of the, I'm going to assume all of the listeners' revulsion to this kind of topic is a dramatic improvement over this attitude being the norm for the vast majority of human history.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like
That's
up until like maybe 150, 200 years ago, it was
that's
just
what
the
happens.
state of things is that when you win, you get rid of as many of them as you can.
Yeah, the comparison that the director makes is like when he walked into it, it was like discovering um, a Nazi Germany where they won and kept going to this day, um, and like the society that gets built around that, and the like wild thing, of course, in a lot of these cases of human atrocity is that like very rarely do you have the person themselves who did it just sitting right there like, oh yeah, totally, this is what I wore, this is what I did, this is how I did it, and what do you want to know, you know. um and then like as the other interesting thing is because it's like they're, you know, filming a movie and like being willing to show and essentially just like confess all the things that happened in this form, they're also like pushing to include some kind of like musical moments, musical numbers, and surreal ass scenes in there. And like because it's like these surreal, just like outside of historical narrative, like just personal driven songs and lyrics, you get to watch what's happening inside the psyche of the individual in question in terms of like where he puts that guilt and how he expresses it. And like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just, it's fucked up. It's super fucked up. Um, so anyway, I know that's a weird ass thing to bring to podcast, but it was a really interesting documentary that I watched and thought it was worth bringing up because yeah, if you are interested in anything like that and you want to know about it, that's really good. And then there was a complimentary movie that came out secondary afterwards where it went back to the victims and followed a family trying to find out about what happened and such. So, like, if you ever wanted to know anything about, you know, like what happened with Indonesia, I mean, this is one hell of a way to do it. And my understanding is that, like, because this documentary was so well received and like critically acclaimed, it then
Mm-hmm.
like changed the way the government approached the subject in the country, and like it went
You would hope.
it went from a like we're not going to talk about this except for when we boast about it and then don't think twice, to a okay, we know it was fucked up, but don't tell us how to fix our own problems, we're going to do it on our own terms kind of thing. But there was like
Yes, we're not going to fix them.
there was a begrudging acceptance of sorts, you know. But anyway, that's a huge recommend. um so that was the one of the things I did. And then I also played some video games.
Before we move on, Wooly, normally I wouldn't bring this up, but oh, did you fix the audio thing?
Yeah, it seems like because I changed because my mic was crackling the other day. I
Yeah,
switched my mic out, so I
yeah.
replaced it for a different one, and I think my mic is now quieter than it usually is.
Okay, because normally people don't complain that much about like, oh, Pat, you're so loud, which I know I'm naturally kind of
Yeah, I dropped you
boisterous.
down. I dropped you down, and I pulled mine up a bit because it's a different mic. Yeah.
All right, great, woo, I did it. I saved it, even though I didn't do anything. All right, so you played some video games.
Yes. I will
I like
adjust.
video games. They're nice and chill compared to all that.
Yeah. At the same time, though, when I was like, "Wait, what happened when? How many?" It's like it was one of the things where I was just like, "I've never even heard of that. That's fucked up."
I didn't hear about that until you just told me. That's a
Yeah.
brand new genocide for today.
Yeah, yeah, and the guy who made the film talks a bit about like why he suspects that you probably haven't heard of it, and I haven't, and a lot of us haven't. Was because at the time, the genociders were being supported by America unofficially. So there's a possibility that like, you know, it's not exactly in best interest to have people super aware of the subject, you know?
Oh, cool.
Yep. 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 So keep that in mind as you watch it as well. Um, and if you're like me, you can go wiki diving into Oblivion afterwards. Anyway, so yeah, the active
Livian
killer.
was a video game that came out with the Xbox 360.
It was.